Hi everyone, I'm Jeff,
And I'm Anna.
and you're listening to We Judge a Show by its Pilot, a podcast where we do exactly what the title says. On today's episode, we're judging the pilot of a show neither one of us have ever seen. Hi everyone, welcome back to our pod,
Hi, I'm Anna.
and I'm Jeff.
And this is We Judge a Show by its Pilot. And today's episode is a comfort show, and it's going to be a show that neither Jeff nor I have ever watched. And the show that we picked today is Suits.
Not Sweets,
It's not Sweets.
which is what I keep saying.
All right, so Suits. This show ran for 9 seasons on the USA Network,
I had no idea it was on for that long.
2011 to 2019, for a total of 134 episodes. The show was created by Aaron Korsh. He was a former investment banker turned TV writer and producer. He also wrote the pilot, and the pilot was directed by Kevin Bray. He was a seasoned TV director who did a lot of stuff for USA shows like White Collar, Burn Notice. Those are actually two shows we've never
seen
watched.
Those, yeah.
I think my sister actually watched Burn Notice, and I think she watched Suits. She can make a comment.
I feel like I should have watched Burn Notice because Bruce Campbell is in it, but
Oh.
I've never watched it.
I feel like I should have watched Suits. We'll talk about that more
Yeah,
in a little bit.
We'll get into that.
All right, so kind of the whole series premise is that there's a college dropout. He has a genius IQ. He has a photographic memory, and he finds himself working for Harvey Specter, who is one of the best attorneys. He calls himself the best closer in New York, and it is currently streaming on Netflix and Peacock. And one just final bit of trivia. Aaron Korsh was originally an investment banker, and he had worked on Wall Street, and he had zero background in the entertainment industry. And even though he was really good at his job and he liked it, he just didn't feel like finance was for him. And he decided just to move to LA, and not even really having any intention of being a writer. He just wanted a change of scenery, and he had friends that were already out in LA, and he decided to try his hand at writing and decided to try to write based on his experience on Wall Street and kind of on himself, because he had a really good memory, and his mentor in real life was named Harvey. And so he kind of just decided to write a show based on that dynamic. And originally, Suits was going to be based in the world of finance, but changed it to legal. And so that is just a little bit of the intro.
That's
into
really interesting.
Suits. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of the same. I mean, not kind of, but I mean, kind of, I'm sure, the wheeling and dealing and money and big players.
Yeah, and also, like, finance is kind of, I'm not going to say the law is not complicated, because it is, but I feel like the procedural shows are a little bit more universal versus a show about Wall Street.
Yeah. All right. So, what makes Suits a comfort show? Why are we saying that this fits our theme for this month?
So when we decided that we were going to do themes each month, we decided to do that because not only does it make it easier for us to choose a show, but it also makes it more fun. So when we decided to do comfort shows, I thought maybe we got in, it was a little bit of an ambitious theme, because for first time watches, it's kind of hard to say what a comfort show is or isn't because we've never seen it.
Right.
Comfort shows are, I mean, we're going to say this probably all month. Comfort shows are very subjective. And it was kind of just trying to find a show that kind of had like the essence of a comfort show. And first thing I did was I looked up on the internet, best comfort shows, best feel good shows, and I mean, Suits was on pretty much not every ranking, but on a lot of rankings, which really kind of surprised me. So I did more research and kind of found out that it was the most watched acquired streaming series in 2023. Like not original, like not an original, like not like a Netflix original or anything. It's like
Oh,
a
okay.
TV show that they acquired.
Got from like USA.
Right.
So yeah.
In 2023, Americans watched 57 billion minutes of Suits.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is a much more popular than I realized, and also after watching it, kind of realizing it kind of has that like buddy comedy vibe. The humor is very lighthearted, and I think everyone just loves a procedural show. I just think that that's something that you can kind of put on in the background and just kind of listen to,
Yeah.
once you've watched it enough times.
And I think it's interesting that it had that resurgence in 2023 once it got on Netflix, because, we're going to talk about this in just a second, but I think like around the time that Suits was on, like I think there was like this dynamic in cable versus streaming.
Right.
And I think that there were a lot of like people parting ways with cable. So maybe people didn't originally see it on
Right.
USA Network. But obviously the whole Meghan Markle royal family has inspired some more interest in
Right.
it. So, yeah.
And there are different types of comfort shows, and I would put Suits under what I like to call a hotel comfort show, because all those like original shows from USA and TNT and TBS, they're just on all the time. I mean, whether you're in a hotel or at a doctor's office or, just having something on during the day, you'll always see like White Collar on the channel guide, or you always see something on one of those channels
And
at all times.
that kind of goes to what I said, is most hotels still have cable.
Right.
Yeah, they're not going to
Right.
have, I mean, some have streaming now, but you enter in your own information. But when you turn the TV on, it's the networks and cable channels
Right.
that are playing. So yeah, that definitely makes sense.
And it kind of got me thinking about hotel comfort shows once I kind of looked that up, and I was just kind of thinking like, what are your hotel comfort shows? Like, what's a show that you're always like looking for when you're at a hotel?
For me, I'll just say it: The Office,
Yep.
Law and Order,
Sex in the City.
Sex and the City is oftentimes a lot on E,
On E,
for
yeah.
sure. I watch a lot of things that are on Comedy Central. Modern Family
Oh, yeah.
is on a lot. But those are pretty much the ones.
Yeah.
So I travel a lot for work. So
You'll send me.
I'll send Jeff screenshots at night when I'm watching TV of what I'm watching.
Specific episodes and
Yeah, I'll be like,
of
this is
certain
what I'm
things.
watching. What are you
Yeah.
watching?
Pretty much everything you just said are mine, except for I'm always watching Catfish when I'm in a hotel. I don't know. Apparently it plays on MTV all the time, but every time I'm in a hotel, I do not watch Catfish when I'm at home. I have no desire to watch it when I'm at home, but for some reason when I'm in a hotel, I'm like, I want to watch 3 hours of Catfish. I've just decided.
Awesome.
So I think that everything I just said kind of, I think Suits is a justifiable comfort show.
Yeah, definitely.
And definitely after watching the pilot, I can see, because it made me. I mean, we'll talk about it later, but yeah, it definitely gives off that comfort show vibe.
Yeah.
So why did you never watch Suits?
So if it came out in 2011,
Yeah.
I'm really trying to think of like where I was at that time, kind of just in my life and work
Right.
life. So 2011, I actually think my work life was changing. I think that was at around the time I moved back to Louisiana in 2006, and I really want to think in 2011 I got a new work territory. It was starting to get a lot bigger, and I was having to travel more. And so sort of watching a lot of TV just wasn't on my radar.
Right.
I also spent a lot of time in New Orleans. My mother lived in New Orleans until she passed away several years ago. And so I was traveling back and forth a lot between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, and then work trips in Baton Rouge. I mean, I was gone. So watching a lot of cable TV just wasn't happening.
Right.
And so I really feel like that was why, which is kind of why I'm surprised I didn't watch it, because it is a legal show and I love legal
Yeah,
shows. So Yeah, I that to me is the only thing I can think of at around 2011, 2012 why I wasn't watching it. Just sort of just circumstance, work,
Right.
life. Yeah, too
Yeah.
much TV else that I was watching.
Yeah, mine's pretty easy. I didn't have cable
Oh, there you
in
go.
2011. I really didn't have, honestly, I really didn't have cable until I moved in with you
Oh, wow.
in 2017. I mean, like I would have it for like little bits of time, but I just never needed it. As long as I had internet, like I was fine. But also with that, you miss out on a lot because it wasn't like this wasn't during an era where I mean I was still doing Netflix by mail, so there was no streaming for
Right.
me.
And that was a lot of movies and
Right?
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say that's ironic because back in 2011, I probably had so much cable. I mean,
Yeah.
I probably had the movie channels, the sports channels, the Latin stuff for my mom here. I mean, I was probably loaded with cable and I probably wasn't watching it, which inevitably we've weaned down to like
Right.
the basics, and we could even probably get rid of a lot of that with how much a lot of stuff is on streaming these days.
So you work in law.
Yes.
You went to law school.
Yes.
Before we kind of get into the actual episode, did you find this show realistic in any way? Like when it comes to the world of law, I know I mean, well, technically you work for, yeah, you do work for a corporation, so it is kind of
Yes.
the
I
same.
work for a publishing
Yeah,
company. So I never worked in like big law. Like
that's what I meant.
this
Yeah.
looks like it's a big law firm in New York. I worked at a small kind of boutique law firm when I was in law school, did like toxic torts. I was a law clerk there for like a year and a half. I will actually go on record and say I am not licensed to practice. I um, got the job that I have today the Wednesday that I was taking the Louisiana bar, and I did not need to have a bar license for the job that I have, so I did not go back and ever finish taking the bar.
Wow.
Yes, my mom was very upset because she was very worried that I was taking this job. I was moving to Seattle, and she was like, "Why are you taking the
Right.
bar?" And I was
That's
like,
insane.
"Yeah."
Yeah.
And it only took about 10 years until I still had the same job that
Right.
she was finally okay with it. And she was like, "Okay, I'm cool. Like, you still have the same
Right.
job." So, I've been with the company that I work for now 26 years. So it's been good. So I will say that working at the small law firm that I worked at,
Mhm.
it wasn't as like big players as
Right.
this. It was toxic torts, mesothelioma, asbestos litigation.
Gotcha. Okay.
So kind of a lot of people who were sick, lung
Yeah.
cancer, all kinds of issues like that,
Personal injury.
personal injury.
Yeah.
I will say though that there was a lot of the kind of having to deal with the big clients and
Mhm.
companies, and the firm I worked for represented the plaintiff. And so, yes, I think it was on a much smaller scale,
Mhm.
but, I don't know if what's going to happen because, again, we've only watched the
Right.
pilot, so I
Yes.
don't know what else transpires on this show in the future. But kind of just seeing the basics of the firm. Yes, you may see a litigation team, and there were paralegals, and there might be a medical team, and there were the partners and the senior associates, and I was a law clerk, and you might have a secretary or an administrative assistant. I know that we also got introduced to the managing partner. There was kind of what was called at the firm I worked at the litigation manager, where she, kept the calendar for all, court dates and stuff like that. So it was definitely realistic in that sense. And I imagine at a big monster firm in New York,
Yeah.
it's like this. So yes, I will say in the sense of just initial appearances, I think it's pretty realistic.
All right. So do you want to get into the episode?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So first, I just got to say that this pilot was almost 90 minutes long.
Yeah. Kind of like a movie.
Usually when usually when we're writing out our summaries, we usually just like to do a couple paragraphs just like for bullet points. But since we've never watched the show before, I'm like, no, I have to include everything. So of course the first episode that we do that with is a 90-minute pilot. So I ended up writing it's a few pages.
But you're not going to read it all.
No, I'm not going to read the whole thing. This isn't going to be a book report.
No.
I'm just
Or
yeah, so it's just I'm also kind of just warning the listeners that it's a 90-minute pilot and it's a lot, but here we go.
We decided to invest that time, so bear with us.
All right, so Harvey Specter, played by, and I'm already going to be asking you, Gabriel, is it Macht? Okay. He's, yeah, like you said, he's the best attorney, best closer in New York. Can you tell me what a closer is? It sounds self-explanatory, but like...
I think it's the attorney. I mean, I think it's just kind of I don't know if like every law firm would have one of these.
Right.
I think it's kind of the guy you send in who's just not going to take
it's
anything.
Not really like a job title. It's like
correct.
A skill.
Yeah, I think it's the guy who's going to go in and be like, all right, let's finish this. Like, this is it. Bottom line, we got to stop playing around. Because like that, I mean, I think that's like litigation is it's a lot of back and forth. Like,
right.
I want this, you want that. Let's meet in the middle. And sometimes I think you can kind of come to a head and not agree. And I think a closer or, you know, whatever the show is trying to make him out to be is the guy who comes in to like just seal the deal for the firm.
Gotcha. It's like if a client's being hesitant or is trying to like go somewhere else and they come in and try to and get them to make their final decision on that. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so Harvey is working. He is a junior partner. I believe that's what his title is at the beginning. He wants to be made senior partner, but his boss, Jessica Pearson, who's played by Gina Torres, doesn't think he's ready. I would say he's very antagonistic. He really kind of likes to mess with his coworkers. He's not really like a team player.
He doesn't seem very serious.
He's kind of like the I'm sorry, I'm going to make a dorky reference, but he's kind of like the Gordon Bombay of Suits because all Gordon Bombay cared about was winning. And that's all kind of Harvey cares about. He doesn't really care who he doesn't really get like attached to his clients. He's very much like just kind of a hard ass. He's just very much like he just wants to win.
Gotcha.
All right, so now you have Mike Ross, who's played by Patrick J. Adams, who had a recurring role in Friday Night Lights. He is a genius. He has a photographic memory. He was expelled from his university a few years before, and so he kind of makes money using his intellect by taking the LSAT for grad student or for pre-law students, I guess.
Which is the law school admissions test.
Thank you. And he's kind of tired. He's getting like, of course, when you're dealing with like college kids, you know, you're gonna get ripped off. You know, I think when he goes to the customer that he, you know, does the test for, he shorts him the money, and then he's just like, you shorted me, and he's like, what are you gonna do? Call the cops? Like, you know, and it's just kind of like that's what he has to deal with all the time. He also has a grandmother that's in a retirement home and they can't really afford it. So unless he can come up with $25K, then the grandma's out on the street. So Mike has a roommate named Trevor, and he's a drug dealer, basically. He's a middleman, I guess would be a good way to put it. He's the transporter. Mike decides he's going to put he says, $25,000. I'll do this job with you one time, and that's it. So let's see. Harvey closes with a big client, and Jessica ends up promoting him. And he's like, hey, you have to hire an associate. You have to hire is it a junior associate?
Yeah.
Is that what it'd be called?
Junior partner, junior associate.
Basically, just to work for him or so he can mentor. And this company only hires Harvard graduates.
Right.
They had to have gone to Harvard Law, and that's it. And Harvey just wants someone that is different. He wants someone that's going to shake things up and stand out. And you're not really going to get that, you know, with I guess Harvard graduates. I guess it was supposed to say that they're all just kind of the same. All right, so Mike, Harvey has his interviews for the job at the Chilton Hotel.
Which this is kind of one of the things about Suits that we're slowly noticing. We don't know if it happens a lot throughout the series, but we've noticed these like little Easter eggs that are happening. So Chilton Hotel, I kind of was triggered by that, thinking of Gilmore Girls. So Chilton was the school that Rory went to. So we're going to kind of keep hearing a little bit more of these things throughout this episode. So, okay. So
yeah, so he goes to they have the interviews at the Chilton Hotel, and let's see. And then Mike is also, that's right.
Where the drop
that's right,
is.
That's right. I was trying to remember what the connection was. Yeah, Mike has a drop off. The drop off that Mike's supposed to do is at the Chilton Hotel. So when he's going upstairs to the room, he sees a bellhop and someone, I guess, who's supposed to be like the hotel manager. They're trying to get into a room, and maybe it looks like the key's been demagnetized or something. And Mike just kind of gets a hunch, and he asks the bellhop, hey, how's the pool? And the bellhop's like, oh, this is the Chilton. The pool is amazing. You're gonna love it. And because he has a photographic memory, he pays attention to everything. He remembers seeing a sign that said pool is closed.
Right. So he knows.
Right. And then he sees the holster and the guys. So
gun.
He's like, yeah, this is definitely a setup. So he kind of takes off. The bellhop, who he was right, they're undercover cops, and the bellhop starts chasing after him. Mike he remembers seeing the sign for the interviews, and he decides to go hide in there. So he ends up in an interview
with all the other Harvard
students, and he goes into the interview with Harvey. Just he's just going to waste time and just to get away from the cops. Unfortunately, the briefcase full of marijuana falls out right in front of Harvey. So then Mike ends up telling him everything. And Harvey kind of finds out this kid is a genius. He has memorized the law books. He took the bar just to win a bet. That's what he said. Yeah, he took the bar just to win a bet. And so Harvey decides to hire him. Now, how realistic is that?
Not very.
Right.
Because he was actually hiring him to practice law. It wasn't like he was hiring him like I worked at the firm. I was just a law clerk where I did research and I would go to meetings or go to, court and sit and listen. I was not actually signing papers or arguing in front of a judge. I wasn't going up against another attorney. I mean, he was hiring him to actually practice law, and without even a law degree, much less a license to practice. So, I mean, I think just realistically, that's not very realistic.
Right.
So, again, it's a show. So we will cut it some slack.
Yes. So on his first day, Mike meets Rachel Zane. She's played by some random actress. You've probably never heard of her. Her name's Meghan Markle. She is a paralegal, and she's like doing his orientation. By the way, what's the difference between a paralegal and an attorney other than like schooling?
Well, a paralegal is usually a person at the firm who does really kind of a lot of the actual legwork. They draft documents, they do research. I remember at the firm I worked at, I was given an assignment, and probably the look on my face was just pure fear of being tasked to do this really hard thing. And the attorney I worked for, his like almost exact words were, go talk to Linda, the paralegal.
Gotcha.
She will help you like go find something. And I was like, okay. And Linda became my best friend at the firm, so yes, I just feel like the paralegal is definitely the person who knows their way around the firm, knows who everyone is, knows.
So they're like the nurses of the law firm. Nurses,
for sure.
Nurses kind of do everything.
Yeah.
All right. So Harvey gets a pro bono case and then kind of pawns it off to Mike. Once again, like you said, he is practicing. He is being a lawyer. Mike is having a law case.
And this is against the managing partner's wishes. She wants him to actually do it.
Yeah. Jessica doesn't know.
This is part of his like test of seeing his heart. Like do this thing for the good of someone, not because you're going to win a lot of money.
All right, so Mike goes and meets the client. It's a sexual harassment case, and her name is Nancy, and I'm going to end up butchering her name, but her name is Dagmara Dominzik.
Dominzik sounds good.
Who's married to Patrick Wilson.
Yes,
And
love him.
I just had to mention that because Insidious is one of my favorite movies.
All right,
I
you
love
know,
that
I love
movie.
me some. Is it Prometheus that he's in? He plays the mom, the dad. Yeah, he plays
Yep.
he plays Numi Rapace's dad in her dreams. Sorry, got a little aliens reference
Oh,
there.
you're good. It's your favorite movie.
It's my
It's your
favorite
favorite
movie.
movie. So,
All right.
Nancy was fired by her boss Charles Hunt for dismissing his sexual advances. Basically, is a good way to put
Right,
it.
right.
But she was fired 2 months later, basically under the guise of poor work performance. Just a very vague reasoning. Mike tells Nancy he'll help her, and yeah, and so we start learning about kind of Harvey, how he operates as an attorney, which he likes to say he likes to press them until it hurts, which basically means like he's just trying to get as much information out of them as you can. Is that basically what that means?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
just drive it home. Yeah.
All right. So, Mike's having a little trouble kind of figuring out how to go about this case. Harvey suggests that since Charles Hunt's probably a repeat offender, because most sexual harassment, they usually are, he tells him to, probably be a good idea to look at past female employees that have been kind of fired for vague reasons while Charles has been working there.
Right. Like look at can we get their records? And so usually when you're, filing a lawsuit, you want discovery, you want to see files, like employee files from HR, just kind of terminations, hiring, all of those kind of things. So that is something that they're trying to get from the company.
So Harvey tells Mike that the law firm in question is fighting the subpoena that Mike has. How do you word it? Given them. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Bestowed upon
serve
them.
Serve them.
Serve them.
Yes.
I'm so silly. All right. So he realizes he needs to find evidence. Hold on. He needs to find evidence to fight the motion to dismiss. I'm sorry, you have to explain that to me.
Well, essentially, the company is trying to get rid of the lawsuit. Like, so they don't want to go to court. They, well, one, they probably know that, the Charles Hunt guy has made the sexual advances,
Gotcha.
but, they want to dismiss the lawsuit. And so they're saying, like, there's, it's just her word against ours.
Right.
There is no evidence of this. So that's essentially, they're trying to get the case dismissed.
Gotcha. Okay. So, Mike gets Rachel to help him out, look for evidence. We find out that, first of all, they go to the law library. Sorry, I almost skipped past. They went to the law library.
I know, my favorite part. Yes, that's what I do. I teach legal research at various law schools in the country. And so, he goes to Rachel because she is the best researcher at the firm. And of course that piqued my interest.
Oh, yeah, I thought of you immediately.
He was of course trying to butter her up, but
right.
It worked. And so she decided to help him, and they go into the big law library, which I just love seeing all the reporters and things like that. And so they start to look for ways to get the information from the client. So
yeah,
yes.
So they eventually get all the personal files, but the number of boxes they send fill up the entire room. But luckily for them, they have Mike, who's a speed reader, and he gets through the whole thing in one night. He finds an employee who had been fired for having a bad attitude. Basically, that's what the reasoning was, which was pretty vague. They try to get this woman to testify, but she's just like, I know what comes with it. I know that, if I testify, they're going to put words in my mouth. And eventually they get her to testify. But what ends up happening is exactly what she said. They find that she had a criminal past that she lied about under oath when she was a minor. So kind of making her like a unreliable source. And she leaves saying, this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. And Mike gets really down on himself, and he's questioning everything. He realizes that he's in over his head and he doesn't know what he's doing, so he decides to quit. He leaves his badge behind, but Harvey finds the badge and follows him out. And it's basically like you can run away like you always do, or you could like try this. You could have the courage to try this.
Right.
And so Mike visits his grandma, who basically tells him the same thing, and he always listens to his grandma. She basically tells him the only way you should leave that place is if they rip you out of there. Basically, she says something like that.
Yeah.
So Mike shows up to work the next day, apologizes to Harvey. Harvey tells Mike he used to quit once a month when he first started, and he only told Mike what he needed to hear. So they find out that Harvey realizes through talking to one of his coworkers that he kind of makes this connection, and he realizes that Joanna was a plant. She wasn't a real witness.
They faked firing paperwork in all the files that they sent. She was never really an employee.
Right. She was basically there to waste time so they wouldn't have time to get an actual witness. And now that they're basically, they basically have every reason, because she has the entire paper trail that proves that they hired her to be this fake witness.
Right.
So what ends up happening is they end up giving Nancy her job back. And because they have all this evidence against them, it's like we could go through legal stuff, or we could just settle and we can just figure this out. So Nancy gets her job back. She gets a raise and then a $250,000 bonus for her child's tuition. And as they leave, Harvey hands Mike another file, and the series has begun.
And there you go.
All right.
All right.
All right, so let's talk about what we thought of the pilot. What we thought of the show.
I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
I'm like, I kind of want to watch it more.
Same.
No. I mean, again, it's, I think you were asking me as we were watching it, like, is this realistic? And
Right.
you asked me just a minute
I
ago,
know.
is this?
Right.
Obviously, there are things that are, to me, not very realistic. I mean, the fact that he takes the LSAT for people, I don't
Right.
know. I mean, obviously, we've heard about these test-taking scams with Hollywood. Don't want to get into that. But so I'm sure those things are tried. For the fact that he sort of makes a living doing it, I kind of find that unrealistic.
Yeah, like what's
as a
the
start.
market for that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, because there's so many, like,
consistency-wise, yeah.
I mean, I guess if you feel like you're really stupid and a bad test taker, I mean, shoot, Rachel Zane, says she
Right.
doesn't practice, or she didn't go to law school because she's not a good test taker. And she's like, if I could only find someone who could take the test for me. And he's like, But like that, I didn't find very realistic. I mean, the whole concept of him hiring a junior associate that didn't even go to law school. In
Right.
fact, he sends him to Harvard to go learn Harvard's campus so that he can talk to the people at the firm about it.
Right.
Like, I think that's why he does that. So again, those things aside, I think it seems like a fun show, because I think the dynamic between the two seem fun. And of course, I love anything legal. I love research. I love kind of the, mentor-mentee dynamic and things like that. So I think I would definitely continue watching this show.
Same. Now, there were characters that I didn't mention just because, like I said, there was so much going on. But Harvey has an assistant named Donna, who she was actually my favorite. I thought she was really funny. Their whole dynamic was really good.
Yes.
I really liked it too. I know anytime we watch something having to do with law or lawyers, I'm always asking you a million questions, mostly just because it fascinates me. Just that whole world of law. But I definitely want to keep watching it. So that's good that we both liked it.
Yeah.
All right. So elephant in the room, I guess, if you want to say that. Meghan Markle is on Suits. She is, she's extremely famous right now. She's,
Obviously.
I mean, they're not as much on the tabloids as they used to be, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, it's pretty crazy to watch Suits now and just be like, wow, that's Meghan Markle.
I
Like,
mean,
that's Meghan Markle.
she also had like a mega, and I wouldn't even call it a cameo in one of our other, like our favorite movies, Horrible Bosses. She
Oh
was
yeah,
the FedEx girl.
that's
So,
right.
you
That's
know,
right.
like, I mean, I
Forgot about
remember we
that.
watched that.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my gosh, that's Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
I mean, she was on the screen for like 30 seconds tops, but you know, you kind of see these things now in a different way
Right.
and look at them and stuff. But I think she really held her own in this
Oh
episode
yeah.
because, you know, I love the royal family stuff. I've probably have loved it since I was a kid. I had really great history teachers
Mhm.
that just made me intrigued, and I'm going to sound like a total nerd. Like, I loved reading encyclopedias when I was
Oh yeah.
little and reading about that kind of stuff growing up. It was fascinating. Princess Diana, of course, I woke up for the wedding. So I have a lot of love for the royal family kind of intrigue. Not so much for, you know, everything that's happened recently,
Right.
but I put that aside because I just wanted to watch this as it was.
Right.
I'm not thinking of her right now as a duchess or a princess or whatever. So I just I liked her in it a lot so
I did
far. I
too.
mean, I
Yeah.
think she really stood up for herself
Mhm.
and was kind of like, you know, I'm the best in the office. I'm the best researcher. I'm the best paralegal, and this is what I do.
So you really like legal shows. You said that earlier. What is like your biggest pet peeve about legal shows that they like always get wrong?
Well, I will say, and you know, again, listeners, you can tell me. Since I don't technically practice, and it's been a long time since I actually worked at a firm, one of the things, and this is obviously due to time constraints, is you know, you don't get decisions from judges immediately all the
Right.
time. I mean, I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves is like, you know, they go to court and all of a sudden they have their answer. You know, like I'm like, that doesn't happen all the time. And I do remember those kind of things came into play with clients when they would come into the firm and I would be sitting in a litigation meeting or a client meeting and they'd be like, you know, why don't we know the answer yet? Or,
Mhm.
you know, like on the LA law, you know, they knew the answers right away. And so sometimes, you know, reality isn't what you see on TV.
Right. All right. Do we think that this pilot holds up? Do you think it still applies to today?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think it does. I mean, I think, you know, the law is ever changing. I mean,
Mhm.
we have seen that in the past 5 years with
Right.
the pandemic. I mean, there's so many legal issues that are happening and going on. And I think big law firms are still there, small law firms are still there, and people are going to law school more than ever today. So I think, you know, I think it will still resonate. And I think that's why it has been exciting, not just because of Meghan Markle
Mhm.
and her link to the royal family. You know, I think now because people can see it on Netflix, but I think
Yeah.
it's still really interesting. So I think that is a good thing.
Right. I mean, and even if the resurgence of popularity has something to do with Meghan Markle, I really think you're not going to watch 130 episodes. You're not going to watch 57 billion minutes of a show just because Meghan Markle is in it. So there has to be something about the show that people just can't get enough of.
Well, I will say there is one thing that I have loved so far. And again, listeners, if you've watched Suits, you can tell me that it still happens. Um, I mentioned the Chilton Hotel Easter egg. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't know if that's an Easter egg. I don't know if that's the actual definition of an Easter egg, but we also heard Dean Wormer,
Yes.
which is a reference to Animal House.
Yep.
And we also heard Devlin McGregor, and I kept hearing that because that was the company,
Right.
and that was being sued, like not the sexual harassment one, but the one initially that Harvey was
Right.
trying to close at the beginning. They kept saying Devlin McGregor, and I was like, I know that. I know that. I know that. It was driving me insane, and it hit me. I was like, That's the pharmaceutical company from The Fugitive, the movie.
Oh,
that
okay.
that they were.
I've not seen that movie in forever.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was driving me nuts, and I was like, I know it. So I love things like that where a show will, or like in a movie where they will, a director or someone will drop a little Easter egg in there about another show or another part of the series into that. And so I really loved that. I kind of found that fun to be like listening and looking for things like that. And if we keep watching it, I hope that there are more of those.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it wasn't just in the pilot. So let me know if I should still watch for those or listen for those.
All right. Do you have anything? Any other thoughts?
No, but
concerns?
I can see that we would maybe start watching this.
Oh,
I think we have quite a few to go.
Yeah, we only have 133
left to watch.
All right, well, I think that wraps up this episode of We Judge a Show by its pilot. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode.
You can follow us on Instagram at We Judge Pilot Pod. Leave us a comment, maybe suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments.
All right, what are your emojis? You're so good at this.
I was thinking the Scales of Justice.
That's a good one.
I was thinking the crown for Princess for Rachel Zane. I was even thinking of the little businessman or the judge. Perhaps there is a judge emoji.
Oh, okay.
Or any of those.
Yeah.
Like building or something.
Skyscraper.
An apple for New York,
That's
maybe. A little man in a business suit or something. So any of those. All right. Well, thanks so much. We're going to head out, but we'll talk to you real soon. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.